As at the end of 2010, the total gas supply to the power sector was about 300 million cubic feet per day. Today, over the last 3 years, we have tripled the gas supply capacity to the power sector, and we have an installed capacity of 1,000 million cubic feet per day for the power sector. In addition to that, over that period of time, we have grown gas supply to support the astronomical growth in demand from the non-power sector, like the cement and all the other manufacturing sectors. But despite that growth, people are not seeing power, and that's the challenge we face. We have experienced, like has been said a couple of times here, we continue to experience outage in our supply infrastructure. There's never been a time in this 3-year period that the consumers have seen the full essence of that supply that we have grown in the last 3 years, which is very painful for us as well on the supply side. There are 2 critical pipelines in the country, the Escravos-Lagos pipeline and the Transforcados pipeline. Whenever these pipelines are out, and in fact they've been out consistently, when one is out, the other one is down. Whenever those pipelines, each of those pipelines goes out, we'll lose immediately about 30% of our supply capacity. Right? And like we showed the last time, for over 7 to 8 months, we lost the Escravos-Lagos pipeline. Just as we fixed that pipeline and restored supply, we lost the Transforcados pipeline. I've just been told this morning that Transforcados is back. Yeah. But also on the eastern side of the country, almost every 2 weeks we have the vandalization of the Trans-Niger pipeline. When the Trans-Niger pipeline is down, the Afam power plant is down. Yeah, because we also cannot evacuate condensate and so on. So the issue really is this. We have grown gas supply in the most aggressive manner over the last 3 years.
I sat down for a chat with Professor Bartholomew Nnaji, Nigeria's former power minister, who drove reforms in the sector. Professor Nnaji, you're welcome to the Policy Council.
Thank you, Opa.
You were the architect, as it were, if I may say so, of Nigeria's power reforms. I remember sitting in this same location the day you launched the power sector reform, in 2010. How do you feel seeing the evolution of those reforms?
I feel very proud that we have been able to get the power reform to a point of no return. It's now about ensuring that things work the way they are designed to work.
But most Nigerians, the thought you get from them is, well, I've not seen any improvement in my power. What do you say to those people?
Well, first of all, the power reform is a first step, okay, to actually having power. There are a number of things that come into place with the reform. One of which is, okay, we've sold the distribution assets, we've sold the generation assets, but the distribution assets sold were sold only so that they go into private sector and there will be investment. There will be cleaning up of the network. That's one. We privatize generation, but privatization of generation meant, okay, let's remove government hands in generation of thermal electricity. But what you find is the amount of power privatized is actually very small in comparison to what the country needs. So there must be massive investment in new generation, and the policies are in place to ensure that there can be such investment.
Let me ask you about this vexed issue of gas supply. We hear that's one of the serious bottlenecks, as it were, in terms of meeting the expectations, even post-privatization and all of that. What are your recommendations? Like you said, you are now a private person, but what do you expect to be done in terms of remedying that gas shortfall?
The government has significant role to play in ensuring that that the power plants continue to get gas, because there's almost no way for the companies that have bought these assets to control the flow of gas. What they know is that they buy gas and that they use gas. Now, if there is interruption in the line, they wouldn't know. Now, those who may be vandalizing the lines still think government, they're actually hurting government. But they really are not hurting government, they're simply hurting the population of this country. So there needs to be a re-education as to who is in charge of this gas, who owns this gas that is flowing through the pipes. That's actually technically not government. Of course, if you want to hurt the economy of Nigeria, yes, but of course you are hurting all each other. So there needs to be that, but also there needs to be massive investment in gas infrastructure and gas production. That needs to really be done.
For that investment to happen, doesn't there need to be some, I don't know, deregulation in prices, or maybe?
There needs to be. There definitely needs to be. The PIB bill needs to be addressed. That needs to be addressed. The countries, for us to reach the point where we can begin to talk about power production in the same range as other countries that have emerged or are developed. What our calculation was that we need about 7 BCF of gas. Right now, we are just creeping too close to 2 BCF. We just passed the 1. Oh, huge gap. And so even when you think of the capacity to actually produce the power, there must be also the same gas fuel to support the power production. And if you look at the hydro, we have nearly reached the limit of our hydro production. So there's not much we can do. After we do Mambila and the Zungeru, we're pretty much done with the big hydros in Nigeria. So we must now look at alternative sources. It must be gas fueled, and we have plenty of gas to support that.
So, Professor Naji, some have said, that having privatized generation, privatized distribution, indeed also sold the NIPP assets, by and large the process is ongoing, that the transmission network, which remains government-owned, concession to private managers, is now, as it were, the bottleneck, and that it could sabotage all that the private sector does. What's your view on that?
Yes, it really can. But what the government has to do is to ensure it doesn't. Okay. The original plan was for there to be tiers in in power transmission. The highest tier is the super grid. We initiated the concept of super grid, which would simply significantly reduce power wheeling in the country. 765 kV network. If government will do that, it will go a long way, and that's transmission. It should remain in government hands or government owned but private sector managed for open access purposes.
Because it could be a monopoly.
It could be a monopoly. That's one. Then the second one is the 330 kV network. That also should be the same way. That one is another tier, so that if you take power from the 765 kV from wherever and drop down to 330, you still have a significant reduction in losses by still doing it that way, so that power can reach every point in the country with significantly high voltage network. Those should be the limit. The 132 kV networks, I believe, should just be regional. So when you look at the 132 kV network, like the Eco Disco, the Ikeja Disco, should have capacity to simply own those to reduce their own losses much further. So that's the next level of transmission. And until that is possible, which means you can have regional grids, but connected to national grid. So which means that people within a particular region have capacity to control their own grid. And that should be allowed. That should work in this country. And you can go from that to city grids.
Okay.
So a city like Lagos can have its own grid that and have embedded generation and be able to hold its fate in its own hands. I totally support that.
Excellent. Professor Naji, you put your money where your mouth is, as it were. You advocated for policy reforms in the electricity sector, and you invested in that sector through the Geometric Power project in Aba. How is that project now? What's the status?
The project is pretty much completed. What we undertook to do in Aba is to build an embedded power plant, and we have an agreement with government to take the distribution network of Aba and Ariaria area, which is really like half of Abia State. Okay. So from the boundary of Aba and Umuahia going to Port Harcourt, we have the network. So we've taken that network and cleaned up the network by building substations. When we came into Aba, there were 3 substations. We built 4 new substations. We've also built over 140 kilometers of overhead lines at 33 kV and 11 kV level. We have even built a gas pipeline to supply gas to the power plant. So all these we have done, and the whole idea is to have a ring-fenced area, much like what one would advocate for Lagos, because Lagos has can ring-fence itself and essentially ensure absolute reliable supply of power to the area. That's what we have done in Aba. And in about a couple of months, we should be able to fire up.
Congratulations, Professor Naji.
Thank you
very much for your service to Nigeria and for coming on the Policy Council.
Thank you.
Ehingbeti 2014 lived up to its billing as an effective public-private sector mechanism for advancing policy and development in Lagos State. It is expected that, like previous summits, the resolutions of Ehingbeti 2014 will shortly stand as implemented projects and achievements of the Lagos State government.